Hello, Pivot friends, and thanks so much for giving us a little bit of your time today. I'm Bernie Arneson, and I'm a principal here with Pivot. I've assembled a group of what we call Pivoteers to be with me today to share some important insight about our industry. Insight we think could be helpful for you as you plan for 2023 and well beyond. So let's get after it. Let's put our industry into a little context. You know, thanks to some historic public and private financing, we're entering into the biggest expansion of broadband over the next 5 to 10 years in our industry's history. That expansion has far-reaching implications that we'll want to get into today. But honestly, even before all of this funding became available, the broadband business was already evolving. Indeed, the way you run your business, well, that's already been transforming for years. And much of that focus of this transformation has been on technology and operations. Important factors for sure, but equally important is how the transformation of how you serve your customers, and specifically the experience you deliver to them. There may be no more important trend to understand than the impact of customer experience, or CX as we like to call it, for the long-term health of your business. And one other major factor in our business is the emergence of a new normal after the COVID-19 pandemic. There's no mistaking the global pandemic has impacted our industry in profound ways. In fact, it's one of the primary reasons why there is now so much new funding available. But it has also changed society. Where and how people work, learn, play, and live has been altered, perhaps forever. So we want to discuss what all this means to your business as you plan for 2023 and beyond. Now, for the past 18 years, Pivot has been building up a talented team of marketing and CX experts, and they work their butts off every day, working alongside clients to help their business grow and thrive. And I'm thrilled to have some of them along with me today. So let's begin to pull them in. As I first mentioned, we're in the middle of this historic expansion, and one implication of that is a much more competitive environment. Now, this competition is not just for customers, but it's also for some of that funding that we've been talking about, and for staff. So I'd like to start by pulling in Chelsea Radich, who's the Director of Marketing Services here at Pivot, and Jenny Green, our Digital Services Director, both of whom work with broadband providers all across the country, helping develop and implement successful marketing strategy. Chelsea and Jenny, as you think about this rising competitive environment, what does that mean for a provider's marketing strategy?
I just want to say that the role of marketing has never been more important than it is now. There's new competitors joining the marketplace every day. And obviously some big names as well are still making their presence known. And so it's really critical that providers are doing what they can to understand the competition, understand what their customers need, and also understand their strengths and how they can position themselves within the marketplace best. So in really taking a unique and memorable approach.
I love competition and I hate losing. So to me, being competitive with your marketing strategy is critical. And it's now that you have to start preparing for this, whether you face a lot of competition in your area or not. So focusing on what makes you different, I think, is one way that you can really adapt your marketing strategy to stand out in a competitive marketplace. But not only that, it's important to be where your audiences are. From a digital perspective, I think it lends itself really well to understanding that, because you can test different things and you can do segmentation in your marketing very easily. But by revisiting your touch points and your tactics, you can assure that they are exceptional and consistent. So whether that is a more traditional piece or your social media, your website or landing pages, your Google presence, all of those things are ways that you can stand out competitively if you are adaptable, if you are intentional and strategic, if you're using data to inform your decision and listening to your customers. I think all of these are tools that can make your marketing strategy competitive and help you win.
So when we're talking about branding, what we're really mostly talking about is how do I establish a good relationship between my customers, my organization, the people, all the people who are connected to this business? How do we build really positive, meaningful, lasting relationships? And when you think about that, if you're encountering new territories, new people, then you're trying to introduce yourself. You are trying to gain some trust. You're trying to find some common ground. And that a lot of that's done fairly easily face-to-face in a conversation. We're used to that kind of thing. But in today's marketplace, you often have to do that at a distance. And so things like your website, things like your digital tactics, things like a video might be the very first encounter they have of your organization. And thinking about how are you introducing yourself? What is the thing they're going to take away with? What do they know about you from encountering that one simple piece that matters and that they want? Like, how do we make those things be actually a great introduction that makes you want to know more, rather than just a thing that's designed to get them to click a button and to purchase something? That is what's really going to make a difference in your brand work if you start to get to those deeper levels. Because I think what customers are looking for through brands is really organizations that have values they believe in, organizations that they want to see more of in the world, organizations that build up their community and support things that they want to have supported. So finding ways to share those, articulate them, show them visually, and just represent them through no matter what work you're doing is really critical. It's also the exact same kind of stuff that helps build your employees up. Like, the work of building out these networks is hard, and it's just going to get harder when you have competition that you have to work against. So the things that often make that hard work easier, it's the shared stories, it's the shared values, it's the thing we believe in that kind of rallies us together so that we're ready to do the hard work together. It's also the kind of thing that helps people be patient with you. This is hard work. It's going forward. We are being honest, transparent, and authentic in every step of the way, and people will go with you on that. So I think branding is just so critical because of all the hard, meaningful work that people have to do. When you can create really sound, strong relationships on every level of your company, you're going to have a company that really kind of has an edge on the competition where there isn't that kind of personal engagement.
Thanks, Brandon. So, Jenny, these changing trends impact effective digital marketing as well, right?
I think when it comes to a digital strategy, that's really important. You need to be speaking in a language that your customers are expecting, and not necessarily what you think they want to hear, because there's a difference there. And so I'll go back to what I preach all the time. Testing can be so important, and having a sense of adaptability with your marketing, because these trends are changing. Nielsen at the beginning of the pandemic put out a report that said 60% of people when at home have an increase of up to 60% when it comes to digital consumption. And I would be so curious for a follow-up survey, because I only imagine that has increased as people are working from home and learning from home and doing everything from home in such a way that requires more bandwidth and more opportunities to be reached via the internet. And so it's a fascinating trend and something I'm excited to keep watching. But yes, brands have to be adaptable and be willing to test and try and course correct or lean further into things as our post-COVID world continues.
I want to hear now from our Senior Insights Manager, Steve Baseflug. Steve runs our research projects, and so when you think of all of the different aspects of rising competition, Steve, how can providers turn market research into an asset and a tool?
Before entering a new market, for example, you need to know how many homes and businesses want a better provider, and you need to know what the service gaps are. What areas should you be exploiting with marketing? It's those weaknesses. What areas are not being served well or serviced well with customers in that market, and those are the areas that you want to pay attention to. Obviously, research provides that along with many other details to help with go-to-market decisions. And another thing too is that every market is different. You can't necessarily transfer a marketing approach from one market to another, applying the same strategies. We just finished a project, for example, for a client that's looking to expand their fiber network in one or both of two towns that are only 100 miles apart. Each town has their main competitor is a national provider. And we found through our research that neither town is being served well, but for different reasons. In one town, they're unhappy with customer service. And we have details behind that to support why they're not happy with that. And they're also not happy with connection reliability. And they call in to give feedback on that to their provider, and they're not happy with the tech support response, all those kinds of things. In the other town, it's more about value. They're paying a high price. They're saying they're paying a high price and not getting the speeds that they want. So they're unhappy because of that. In total, almost 50% of respondents we found are yearning for a better provider. They would switch from their current provider there. But the marketing approach in each town should be different. It could be very different. The research findings will help shape their strategy in that regard.
I just wanted to throw a thing in about research because I think, so I live in a small town, and one of the critical things that overlaps between research and branding is I think people often think they know the place they live. They think they understand everything about it. But when I think about my town, and it's not large, like I might know 25 to 50% of what's going on in the world around me here. Think of how much I don't know. There's so much more I need to find. Like there's so much assumption that I have about what people actually care about, what they need, what they want. And the only way to find it is to actually go deeper and start to research and find out those layers you don't know.
It's amazing too that, and it's one thing that I find with clients when they do research is they often get surprised by lack of awareness. Lack of awareness of things that they think the customers should know about. And very often I hear, well, why don't they know that? And it could be something about, we have faster speeds, and why don't they know? And the awareness is low about the fact they can upgrade their speed for an incremental cost, an additional cost that they may have expressed in our research they're willing to pay. They're just not aware that that speed is available. And as marketers, we all eat, sleep, and breathe our jobs and the things around us, and all the things that we pay attention to day in and day out. But our customers are not marketers. They're not like us. They don't have that awareness, that daily awareness. So sometimes it's hard for us to put ourselves in their shoes. There's sort of a natural bias that we have because of our jobs and living in our environments where we're dealing with that on a daily basis. Research helps us put ourselves in the customer's shoes and understand these things and identify where those gaps are and what we need to do to increase awareness and make sure that we're solid in all the elements that help build the brand and strengthen it.
I was going to go back for a second, Brandon. You made the tie between research and branding, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think a lot of people who might listen to this might say, well, I already know our values, right? Our values are safety. Our values are trustworthiness, right? These things that are inherently good, but are the things that customers think they should be, right? So I'm just thinking about at some point there has to be these values that have to be true, but also created and communicated that actually make it feel different, right, from the competition, that sets you apart, that's like breaks through the chatter and the noise of all these other things, right? We have to be more than about, well, we've got a gig for $99 and we're your trustworthy local partner. Those are great things, but it's often not enough now. So can you maybe expand on that a little bit just from a branding standpoint about how do you get to some of those things?
Oh, absolutely. It's really funny. The thing that's in my head after that is like, there's a word that I almost just want to outlaw from branding in our industry, particularly it's reliability. I'm like, congratulations, you've met the bare minimum expectation of what a business needs to do. That is everybody's thing. Great. If you have to say it, you're probably protesting a little too much, and we don't want to go there. There's different ways that different people think of it and about how you kind of uncover the unique aspect of each group, organization, people that you encounter. I like to think of it as finding the weird thing in a company, finding that little thing that makes you a little unusual, that makes you a little distinct. And when I say weird, it doesn't have to be actually strange. Sometimes that is your sense of humor. Sometimes that is just your deep level of sincerity. Sometimes it's the fact that like you're a company, you're a telecom company, and yet on the weekends you're hiring out some of your vehicles to help do this other work in your company, in your community. Like everyone has their unique thing they do that makes them a little bit different of an organization. And so what we're thinking about with branding is often, let's take this little thing here, this thing that's a little bit weird but is genuine to you, and let's just amplify that. Let's make sure people see that. Let's make sure people hear that. And I do think that's really important. You have to find something that is actually already present and then just elevate it and bring it to the surface a little bit more than it usually is. And when you do that, that's often when companies really start to become really vibrant and alive. People get excited about it because they see the thing of themselves in it and they're able to talk about it more. And it gets really exciting at that point.
Yeah, and that makes me think too, when you say that type of thing, it's not just that's the kind of company that people want to do business with, but that's the kind of company people want to come and work at and stay at, right? And so in that conversation with regard to employees and competition, not just for customers, but for staff, that felt like a relevant ad there. So thank you.
Everything you guys are talking about makes me think about kind of this question in our industry when it comes to marketing too, of kind of a custom approach of what Pivot develops for clients, and then you have kind of the cookie cutter approach that's also an available option, and that might work in some instances, but to the point of that authenticity and living out values and all of the things that we've been talking about today seems to me that it's hard to accomplish that when you just pull up a postcard that's been used elsewhere and slap a logo on it and send it out, as opposed to developing something custom as a part of a broader custom marketing approach. So I don't know, any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah. I think making yourself look good is not a hard feat to achieve anymore. Like, grab someone fresh out of college somewhere, they can make you something that looks nice. But the thing that you can do that no one else can is be you. That's what actually makes your organization interesting. It is your actual selves and the things that really reflect that. And that's where, when you see a bunch of companies and you literally see it's the exact same ad and here's their logo, there is nothing about that organization in there. And so it's not that it's going to be necessarily bad. It's just that it's a missed opportunity to go much, much deeper, to really create a meaningful relationship. It's kind of like if you were to go out on a first date with someone and they just recited movie lines to you instead of actually having a conversation. Great, it might be kind of fun, it might be kind of funny, but you're not going on a second date with that person. It's going to be too weird.
Brandon, that's really funny. And I'll tell you something else about this, Bernie, that's interesting. Recently, we've just gone through a process and helped a company in Texas redo their brand and create some new kind of visual imagery for them. And I have never in my life, now I've been doing this 25 years in marketing, I've never in my life seen people as excited as they were when they got something specific to who they were. That was extremely this is us, right? And this is who we are. You heard us, you developed something that was uniquely us. That will never be seen anywhere else in the industry. If you don't have things that make you feel that level of excitement and attachment to your brand, then why would anybody else? Right? And so that can be lived out on your website. And man, t-shirts that these folks are creating are incredible. So I think when it comes to customization, you people can sit there and say, I've got to save a little bit of money, so let me just take something that's already been done and slap my logo on it. Or you do have the opportunity of saying, let's find something that's me and find a group of people who can help me uncover the me and the quirkiness and the funniness and the genuineness of me, and then help turn that into something that can create some real attachment and excitement. And that's what we've been really fortunate to be able to do.
Well, and what Steve said earlier about some companies being surprised that their prospective customers or their current customers aren't aware of certain services that they're offering because they're doing everything right. They are communicating, they are sending out the postcards, but maybe what is missing is that unique personality, that unique twist that is going to cut through the chatter and make them memorable, make it stick in someone's mind so that when they see one piece and then they see another one followed right up and it's consistent, that they're like, oh yes, I know these people, I know who they are, and I know what they're selling.
I think everyone has that unique story, and people love hearing stories. So being a creative, unique, original storyteller is just going to make you stand out that much more in the eyes of your consumers.
Jeremy, how's this new competitive world we're in? What does that look like in terms of your teams and your leadership's readiness? Talk to us about that.
Bernie, when I've worked for two different cooperatives in this world, one in Tennessee and one in Arizona, and I leaned on Pivot to do our marketing work for us and to really kind of help us attract new subscribers. But what had happened was we were doing such a great job on the marketing side, we realized very quickly that our team wasn't ready to take all of those leads and actually transition them into subscribers. And so I realized there was a need at that time when I was leading some of those groups that, teams really need to focus on some specific areas of growth and professional development. And so that just became a passion of mine, and I was pretty fortunate I was able to come over to Pivot and to help start that and do that work, and I've been helping along ever since. So I guess that's kind of the big picture is we cannot forget our teams in all of this conversation, right? Because when you have this great marketing or you have this great brand, you have all of this information on the digital or the research side. It's like, what are our folks going to do with that information? And so I think everybody needs to have a pretty good grasp on where are the areas that everybody on my team needs some growth in. And it could be in a variety of ways, and it can be on the sales side, which is where it really started. As years ago when we first got into this competitive nature on the telco side, but even on the electric side, we had to figure out, we've got to compete, which there are different muscles that we have to use to compete, and sales skills that we never had to activate before. And then we had to figure out, we can't be these hard-pressed sales folks because that doesn't jive with some of the communities and the areas that we grew up in. So it's how do we become better salespeople, but not your typical used car salespeople or furniture sales folks? And so there was areas to grow and develop there. Then we have new staff members that come in. They know nothing about broadband. They know nothing about our products. And it's how do we grow our teams, the knowledge about these things? Or maybe they've been with us for a really long time and they don't know about the devices that we have or what mesh units are. And not only what the devices are, but how to educate potential subscribers on what those things are in a way that takes a very complex subject and makes it more understandable, for the average person. So there's a lot of different places where staff can grow and develop. And then you can move into things like cultural alignment or changing cultures, and how do we help people understand why we need to grow and change in those certain areas. And then that even begs the question, what's the culture we're changing from, and what's the culture we're moving towards, and then why are we doing that? So there's just a lot of areas, and of course a lot of that gets wrapped up into the overall experience that we're delivering to our customers. And so I'm just passionate about making sure that teams know the why and the how and the what and feel comfortable with that. And we've been super fortunate that a lot of folks have leaned on us to be able to help in that on that path for some of their teams.
So Jeremy, that's a great segue. I want to stick with you here. I highlighted this transformation that is happening where companies are really beginning to see the key to long-term success is a great customer experience. And that's the industry's latest buzzword. But talk to us about what that actually means and how service providers should be thinking about it.
Yeah, we say buzzword. We've been talking about it for 10 years, right, at Pivot, but it is something that just only in the last couple of years is it really beginning to gain some traction. I mean, when you think about the experience, it's every way in which we're engaging with our customers. Whether you're talking about, Brandon was talking about values and Jenny's talking about on the digital side. And of course, even the questions we're asking when we're doing research. And so every way that we have some type of touch point with our customers, it's understanding where those are really good touch points and where are some of the places that we're missing the mark. And so, you can't think about these things in a singular fashion or in an a la carte fashion. They're all, woven together. Specifically on the customer experience side, we talk about the 3 Ps. You've got the 4 Ps of marketing, you got the 3 Ps of customer experience, where you talk about the product and the price and then the people. And a lot of our clients, the product is in the right place, right? I mean, we're either all fiber or we're getting to all fiber, which means we're going to be able to offer whatever speeds we want. So the product's in a really good place. So that touch point with subscribers is okay. Then you start thinking about what are the processes that we have that are creating some friction for our customers. And so as we started this journey, we started thinking about where can we identify friction with customers. And what we quickly began to realize, and again, through a lot of this was with the research, customers would tell us where we have some friction. But then what we also realize is there are places where our customers don't realize there's friction because they don't see it. And it's the whole thing about the duck, right? The duck looks like it's sailing pretty smoothly, but under the water, man, they're just treading. And so we began to really start to unpack, as part of a CX program, what are the things inside the organization that are creating friction for the teams? Where are the places we're not running as smoothly as we need to? And how do we identify that and begin to make some changes? And we've done some of that at Pivot too, right? We believe in this ourselves and try to figure those things out. And then that turns the conversation around to the employee experience. So how in the world can you say, let's go out and deliver this experience that we've all decided what it needs to be, but if we're not also delivering that to our teams internally, then we've got to do more of that, or it becomes kind of insincere. It becomes kind of fake. It's like, well, my manager's asked me to do this, but I don't feel like I'm getting the same thing from leadership, which then begs the question that now there's leadership development that we need to focus on, and change management and CX leadership that we need to talk about. So a lot there to unpack, but ultimately I think for organizations that are looking to be competitive, we have to look beyond price and product, and we've got to make sure that experience is part of that conversation as well.
That employee experience is so critical, not only for what you're talking about, but when we teed off this conversation, we talked about, when you got to think about competition, is there's going to be competition for your staff. And the better employee experience that you've created internal to your organization, the more likely those people are to want to stay there. So it kind of all comes full circle.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially Bernie, you begin to think about the majority of us are working from home now. I can work, even though I might work for organization A in my community, if I'm working from home, why in the world can I work for a similar organization 1,500 miles away if I'm working from home anyway? And so again, your point is the experience. You need to think about how can we make it better for our remote workers as well? Or if we don't have a remote option, is that a way to improve the employee experience to be able to keep those? But you're absolutely right. I mean, keeping our teams is a critical competitive element for sure.
Well, team, we could talk about this stuff all day. I want to give everybody an opportunity to share any closing thoughts, anything you think would be welcome to our audience of clients and potential clients. What can we share in closing with them?
Well, I guess the thing that I would just say is your competitors are doing these things, and they're doing all of these things constantly. And we need to be thinking about matching that effort as much as possible, so that we can make sure that we're not just on par, but we're actually going above and beyond what the competition is delivering.
Well said, Jeremy. Any other parting thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I use the word feedback a lot. Feedback. What it really means is listening to the customer, and listening on an ongoing basis. If let's say the DMV wanted to make it more fun, a more pleasant experience for people to come in and do what they need to do there. To do that, they're probably never going to do that, right? But to do that, they need to listen. They need to listen and get that feedback from customers and find out from them what's going to make this an enjoyable experience, what makes it not so enjoyable. And if the DMV wants to build their brand, strengthen their brand, those experiences have to happen at every touch point along the way. I mean, it can't be perfect, right? But if you maximize the probability of success wherever the brand can perform and prove itself, that's what you want to do. You want to strive for that perfection, because the more people that have a good experience at every time they interact with you, the stronger the brand's going to get over time. And the more loyal your customers are going to be to your brand, and the more they're going to sing praises about you when someone asks about you and needs a recommendation.
I'll just piggyback off of that to say that a lot of brands that I work with and have seen over the years are afraid of that feedback, specifically when it comes to social media, because there are some people that love to voice their opinion behind a keyboard. So yes, there are trolls, and that is something you just have to take with a grain of salt, but keep your reviews on social media on. Get yourself hooked up with Google My Business so you can get Google reviews, because it is proven that there is a bottom line impact when you have positive reviews, and the negative reviews are just areas that you can look at and evaluate whether there is opportunity there to improve internal systems and processes and things of that nature. So online perception is reality, and people will see what you're doing and hopefully react in a positive way, but don't be afraid to capture it, because it's counterintuitive at that point. It's not productive. And you need the feedback to get better. So keep them on. Keep your social reviews on.
There's like a really great moment in Parks and Rec where Leslie Knope talks about how what she hears people yelling at her, they're just caring really loudly in her direction, which is like a really pleasant way to think about it.
Caring really loudly. Love that. What an exciting time to be in the business. We've never been more energized and excited here at Pivot, and we're honored to be working with so many companies all across the country who work every day to improve their community. So as you plan for next year and beyond, we want you to consider Pivot as a partner. Our talented team can be put to work for you in marketing, CX, research, employee training, web, and even more. You have a lot to accomplish over the next year and beyond, so hopefully you'll let us help. Thanks for your time, and we hope to hear from you soon.